Hello, that was The Chain by Fleetwood Mac. At least I hope so, because we've just started recording, so I don't actually know what the tune was. I'll put that in post. My name is Rob Dylan. This is my second podcast, unofficial, for the GPRejects website, and this time for the mid-season 2019, I have along with me my colleague and personal friend and fellow forumite, You-Gee-Eee-Day.
Hello there.
You-Gee-Eee-Day and I have been good friends for a couple of years now, and I managed to convince him to get on the forum, especially knowing him as I do personally. Do you want to introduce yourself, maybe?
Yeah, sure. I've known you since we met at university, and you got me into the forum because I started getting back into Formula 1, and you thought it would be a good mix, and I really like the tone that the website goes for. I've always thought that the best part of Formula 1 is the parts that are funny, and the parts that are just sad. The drama of Formula 1 is what really always got me. I like the drama in WWE, as someone said on the forum recently. Yeah, just as a quick disclaimer, because I know Rob Dylan so well, occasionally I will say something that's quite hyperbolic or quite not true and wrong, just to try and get a rise out of him.
The following statements do not reflect the GPRejects forum, its members, or any of their opinions. But seriously, we hope you enjoy this mid-season podcast. This was just a little idea I had. I did the post-season podcast with No Pits back in December, and I do enjoy doing these. It's very easy to do, and it's just nice to chat and just contribute something to the forum. So we hope you enjoy. In this episode, we'll be talking about the mid-season, our driver rankings, at least our top drivers, our worst drivers. We'll talk about the most recent news and a few other things. And we hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, and again, I can't stress enough, please don't take everything I say 100% seriously. Please enjoy.
And we are from the GPRejects forum, and we're here to do an unofficial mid-season podcast, or as we're officially calling it, the Northern Anglo pre-post mid-season break Sport Pesa Racing Point Force India Sahara Formula 1 to 1.5 Racing Sport mid-season podcast, sponsored by Rich Energy, trademark.
Oh, thank you. Congratulations. I messed that up 10 times practicing it.
So, before we should begin our podcast, we should talk about our sponsor, Rich Energy, which fuels this podcast. Go ahead, You-Gee.
Rich Energy is everything you need in an energy drink. It's only there when it wants to be, it's not there when you need it. You know, it abandons you at a moment's notice and then comes back and then argues on Twitter for half an hour about whether it's actually there or not. That's everything you need in a sports drink, in my opinion.
Rich Energy sponsors many people around the world. They have many ambassadors, as they call them, such as West Ham Ladies Football Club, Toby Sowry, who is this young British race driver is the next big thing. Having dominated Formula 3, he is now winning races for Lamborghini in the Trofeo series and has very serious aspirations to race in F1, fueled by Rich Energy. They also have partners around the world, such as Pirelli. I don't know who those people are. Santander. Haas. Wait a second.
Hey
ass. That cat. Are they still sponsored by?
Yeah, they are still sponsored by Rich Energy.
As of the time of recording, Haas are still officially on the Rich Energy website, as they haven't probably formalized the crashing of their contract yet. No. In the absolute debacle that was the British Grand Prix. Have you been keeping up with this more than I have, You-Gee?
A little bit. I like to keep up with drama whenever possible for any reason. It's still Rich Energy is still on the side of the car as of the German Grand Prix, right?
Yeah.
So, as far as I remember, so they haven't had a backup sponsor that they just pulled out of their ass and shoved on the side of the car. I think we're very firmly into our first topic of conversation here, Rich Energy, right? What is going to happen? When's the last time a sponsor, in your memory, just completely abandoned the team at the drop of a hat? Like, they just announced 24 hours before a race, you're not allowed to have our marketing on the side of your car.
I can't think of any at least major ones off the top of my head. It is like the whole debacle must be the most rejectful thing, and more rejectful, I would say, than anything that's even happened on track. 2019 has been very boring, and I'm saying that as an F1 fan. It's redeemed itself come the mid-season, but let's not get too like a boxing judge who only watches the last 10 seconds of the match and decides who won the round, you know. And 2019 has been pretty poor, and the Rich Energy debacle has actually really, really entertained me. The head of the company, whose name escapes me for the time being, going completely AWOL and publicly denouncing the Haas team, and then he himself getting fired, or at least behind the scenes he's decided just willfully to step down, according to his board, you know, who are now running the Twitter feed.
It's really weird to see like a company have these kind of internal like meltdowns. Really, it went from like just some like a snide remark on Twitter, and then it became this huge tirade in one tweet about just like, oh, cast their crap, blah blah blah. I'm paraphrasing, but hang on, what's the thing? He called Haas's car a milk float. That was the thing that really stood out to me. I think. I mean, it's not that bad a car, is it?
I mean, the whole Rich Energy thing is just it feels like it was cursed from the start. I mean, if you just look at the Wikipedia page for Rich Energy, like, information about Rich Energy Limited and its energy drink is very limited. Due to this, the company has been the subject of controversy regarding the existence of its product. It may not actually exist, though I hear through the grapevine that you yourself have ordered some.
I can actually go into my fridge and get them out for you right now. I could go hold one in my hand. In fact, I'm gonna actually do that right now. Hold on. This is top tier entertainment here. I am now holding in my hands an actual can of Rich Energy.
With a newspaper of today's date on it.
It says it was made in Austria in 2015. Is this a 4-year-old can of soft drink? Oh no, production 2018, there we go. So it's like a year old, and they sent me this. Bunch of cheapskates.
That's what happens when you mess with Rich Energy. William story.
Oh my god.
So is the whole thing like a Ponzi scheme?
It must be. Like they produced like 100,000 cans of it, put it in a warehouse somewhere, and they're just using F1 drama to drive up sales, I suppose. Like when I went to order that on Amazon, it was sold out everywhere. I swear, there was a rush on Rich Energy drinks.
Really?
And I'm fairly sure. Yeah, seriously, and I don't want to bring up this name too lightly. I'm fairly sure from what I saw happening on a certain image board, most of the people buying them were from 4chan.
Incredible.
There were a lot of pictures of people holding up cans of energy drinks and be like, it's arrived.
So, William's story, the former CEO, has given us some great fun this year. But let's get on track. So, your best race of the year, and why?
My best race of the year, it would be like, I think Germany is too obvious an answer to say, right? I mean, everyone's going to say Germany's their race of the year. It's like pretty obvious. I would honestly say if we ignore Germany, I would have said Austria, like at the Red Bull Ring. That was a really good race. I managed to catch it live, and it's one of the few races this year that I watched the entire thing without like going to do something else while the race was on.
Isn't that sad?
Like I watched more than the first 10 laps, which is the equivalent of a 10 out of 10 rating.
Yeah, I mean, I would say the ending of the Austrian Grand Prix was really good. Like, I watched it live too, and I found it a little bit boring, for the most part, especially with there was no retirement, and The ending was amazing, and Verstappen absolutely deserved to win it. And you had the heartbreak of Leclerc not winning it, and that rivalry, which I think is one of the things we can also talk about coming into the rest of this year and the coming years.
Yeah.
Leclerc and Verstappen are. I'm really happy that they're both in good teams and they both deserve to be there, because, I mean, Ferrari had Raikkonen for too many years. Maybe this is just my opinion. I'm editorializing, but it's so nice to see the second Ferrari seat being taken up by someone who really, truly is going to do something good with it. My best race of the year, I would say Germany, but then again, that's the obvious choice. I missed it live because I was out of the country, and I do really regret that, but I've since watched it on catch up, and it's the absolute chaos that this season didn't have for the first 10 races, and suddenly got all in one, and I missed it when it happened.
Yeah.
But it was to see Kvyat get on the podium must be my moment of the year so far.
Yeah,
by far.
It's, keep in mind, there was a point when Kvyat was leading the race for a couple of laps. I'm pretty sure almost everyone led the race at some point. That was the scary thing. Almost everybody at some point was in first place.
Incredible.
That is almost. I'm pretty sure that's almost unprecedented.
At least
I can't remember the last time there was that many
is
race
not credited as having led a lap, but I absolutely agree with you. There were many points when she was at the front, and it's Germany was the chaos which we need in Formula One, but also I'm in two minds about it, because I've read people's opinions on the forum basically saying that it's like a double-edged sword. Like you like the fact that Germany was absolutely mental and everyone went off and Kvyat got on the podium, but also it shouldn't need chaos to make a good race. You should be able to have a good set of strategies which all are completely different from one another, good clean overtakes. You don't need crashes to make a race good. But in the current year, I'm finding that a lot of the excitement and interest is coming from the unforced errors rather than the overtakes. I would say the Verstappen-Leclerc overtake in Austria probably being the major exception to the rule, which is why it's one of the best races of the year.
I think Germany was actually interesting for another reason. It was one of the few races where Kimi Räikkönen didn't score points. In fact, the Alfa Romeos were dead last.
We will get on to Kimi Räikkönen in just a second, I think.
I just mean in terms of, do you think there is something about the Alfa Romeo car that could be not so good in the wet? That's something I'm starting to suspect. Even when there's a little bit of rain, I'm starting to notice the Alfa Romeos struggle quite a bit.
And the issue is that they're in the midfield. Even if they're one of their cars is at the front of the midfield, they have the issue that the top three teams are Formula One, and the rest of it is Formula 1.5. That's just the way it has been for the last couple of years. And the thing is that when it rains, it really does become even more of a lottery for the midfield drivers. How much actually separates them in qualifying from one another? Between about 7th and 17th, say, it's if you mess up the lap at all, you qualify 15th, and if you get a really good lap, you qualify 8th. That's just the way it is in the midfield, and that the good drivers like Raikkonen, both McLaren drivers have been doing very well. Those are the two that immediately spring to mind. Stroll has also been doing quite well, though maybe his car isn't as good. Those drivers are really coming to the front, and I think I'm not sure it's necessarily a car that doesn't work in the wet as much as it is it's raining, we're in the midfield, let's throw a dice.
Yeah, I suppose. Just on your point, by the way, like you've been saying, I've been reading a lot of the same things people post in the forum, and I generally agree. You shouldn't need acts of God to make an interesting race. If God himself has to intervene to make your race interesting, maybe it's time to make a few changes to the sport. But that does bring up one slight thing. Well, two things, actually. Number one, at some point, I seem to remember, someone said that you could make races interesting by putting sprinklers around tracks. The joke that never ends. And yet
that joke, I wish had died a long time ago. People wouldn't stop bringing it up.
But if you know a track is boring, like there's a couple of tracks that just reliably don't have any interesting races, right?
With two,
that's
yeah.
like that's one thing that maybe could make a boring track interesting. Flip on the sprinklers for 10 minutes before the race, you know, make it a little bit wet, maybe introduce a little chaos. It's not the best way. It's not what you should have to do to make the race interesting, but it's just a stopgap measure, you know?
So, when did Liberty Media take over Formula One? It must have been the end of 2016. So that's nearly
like
3 years ago.
Yeah.
So, overall, taking away week in, week out, little things like that, what do you think of Liberty Media?
I do like the commentary a lot more than many people seem to. I think that they do have some pretty good insights. When not much is happening on track, they do tend to delve into things that are going on off the track, or they'll delve into potential things that may happen later on in the race.
Do you mean in the on-screen graphics? Is that what you're talking about, or what do you mean?
Yeah, occasionally. I'm trying to remember an example, but it's not always focused entirely on the track, is what I'm trying to say. Sometimes they'll, put up potential stop strategies, right? And I find that really interesting.
Okay,
something that we've never... So, if it's not certain, they might, well, Ferrari could be on this strategy, and they'll probably stop at this lap or this lap. And I think for someone like me who's not very good at, keeping track of stuff like that, it's very interesting and useful for me. So that's one point in their favor.
Even more generally than that, I'm thinking in terms of just how Formula One is in general. Okay. Do you feel... Personally, I think the YouTube aspect of it and the social media aspect of it has got a bit better. Although I really don't use very much social media, I will say that the fact that they actually even have a presence on the internet now is at least a step in the right direction. Whereas before it was absolutely nothing. And I think it's a step in the right direction, although I wouldn't say it was anywhere near perfect. There are so many issues with broadcasting rights, for example. If you want to watch the race again, I have a good friend who has the new Formula One online subscriptions, and even still you have to wait 2 weeks or so until you can actually rewatch the race, even when you paid for it. And there's a few issues I would say which could be ironed out, but I don't really know how to feel about the new group. It feels very much like the same, but I feel like it is moving in the right direction, if very slowly. But
yeah, I mean, anything's better than nothing when it comes to,
Yeah, Bernie Ecclestone was long needing to go, and he went almost too late, if you know what I mean. I feel like even when he left, I felt it was too late. But
he's not the only one who's too late leaving. But we'll get onto that topic later.
Regardless, I think things are probably headed in the right direction. I'm being as general as possible. Honestly, I could talk about Liberty Media, I suppose, for an hour, and that would make a very boring podcast. Anyway,
are they done suing YouTube channels for covering Formula One? Have they finished doing that? The fact, even this video we put up on, presumably on YouTube, could get taken down in theory, right?
As long as I bleep out every use of the phrase
Formula One.
Don't say it. So, back on track. Worst race of the year, and why?
You go first. Give me a minute to try to remember what I said.
For me, it absolutely has to be Canada. Hamilton has a very, very easy time. He has had a very, very easy time since 2014 because he's been in the absolute best car on the grid since 2014. Couple of races here and there, the Mercedes doesn't perform as well. I'm going to throw out all those disclaimers, but I would say 9 times out of every 10 races, he has by far the best car on the grid. And if he's not winning, he's finishing second. One, that's a testament to his good driving, and two, that's a testament to the fact that he's in the best car on the grid. And yet, when Vettel makes a slight mistake, they punish Vettel and give the win to Hamilton, even though Hamilton didn't overtake. And for me, that's unforgivable, and I have to slam it firmly in the terrible category. Rubbish race. I was very angry, and you could tell Vettel was as well. It was. I heard someone on the forum that regarded it as almost WWE-esque, where
it was
like publicity stunts and everything going on, and it was very grim to see.
As a fan of drama, I loved it, but I would totally agree. Either Canada or I found the China race really, really boring. I knew from the first 2 laps how the race was going to end. And that's like the death knell for racing, isn't it?
Yeah.
You might as well just not have the race at that point. Like, there's the chance that someone will go off or cause a crash, but apart from that, there's really no other way the race could end. And then, of course, ends in a... And, you know, like, fair play to them. Mercedes have built possibly the most dominant car in the history of the sport at this point. If we go by points from start of the season, I think they're only second to the Ferrari car that just like scooped up every point there was.
Yeah, in the early 2000s. Yeah. So our top 2 races of the year are Germany and Austria, and our worst 2 races of the year are China and Canada, for the reasons stated before. Moving on. So I asked you before we did this to do a little bit of a driver ranking. Now, usually we do all 20 drivers and who's best. Why is this guy 13th and why is this guy 14th? Rather than doing that, because it's the mid-season, we don't know enough. Let's do a top 3 and a bottom 3. And if you have any honorable mentions, you can put them in afterwards. So, do you want to give me your top 3 drivers of 2019 so far?
Sure. So, my top 3 drivers would definitely have to be, I think quite a bit of surprise. I would say Lance Stroll.
Lance Stroll? Wow.
Lance Stroll.
Is this your number 3 position or your number 1 position?
Yeah, number 3.
Okay.
Number 3 position. He's really doing, like, as someone who, I would say I was very unfairly anti-Stroll when I came back into the sport a year and a bit ago, and I saw this guy who's the most obvious pay driver pretty much ever.
You're talking about a podium sitter. He has more podiums.
I know.
He has more podiums than Nico Hülkenberg.
Yes, I know.
But, Pierre Gasly.
My point being, I was not very fair. Really, so far this year, he's been doing, I'd say, like, reasonably well in his car. Like, he's a solid choice for Racing Point. I mean, just because he's the son of the person who owns it doesn't make him a bad driver. And that was my fault, right?
No, yeah, that's perfectly fair. There have been some decent pay drivers over the years. I mean, a perfect example is his teammate, Perez. Was he was a pay driver when he started, as far as I recall. He was funded by Carlos Slim and Banco de Brazil and all that. Then again, his compatriot Esteban Gutierrez was not such a good driver. You really don't know. I mean, there's some people who argue that Michael Schumacher was a pay driver because he was funded by, if I'm not mistaken, it was the Mercedes sports car team when he got dumped in Formula 1. And he ended up being at least semi-decent.
Yep.
So, number 2.
My number 2, I would say Carlos Sainz.
Good choice.
Really blowing the hell out of that McLaren. I should have put him in my predictions for predictions pretty much every week. He's pretty reliably on the top 10. I think he's actually been in the top 10 almost every race, if I remember right.
Almost every race. At least almost every race he's finished. He's had his last 3 race positions were 6th, 5th, and 5th.
Yeah, like McLaren is 4th, I would say, primarily due to him. Like, Norris is doing fine, but Sainz has completely blown me away with his performance. Now, Because I only said 2 names. Do you think you can guess what the third one is?
I think, knowing you personally as I do, I know exactly who number 1 is going to be. It's probably Kevin Magnussen.
Could you edit in some Gregorian chanting here?
Yeah, sure, I can try.
O Kimi, who art in Sauber, hallowed be thy name. Thy championship come, thy will be done, in the pit lane as it is in the design room. Give us this race our weekly points, and forgive us our failures as we forgive those who fail us like Giovinazzi. Lead us not into false hope, and deliver us from reject status. Amen.
Well, Ben, you've successfully alienated our entire religious audience here on the GPRejects.
Yep.
So I hope you're happy.
Yep.
We apologize for this blaspheming, but I think you have a certain passion for Mr. Raikkonen.
I mean, I loved Raikkonen when he was driving for Ferrari. I don't know what it is. Like, I mean, his out the race persona is really funny. He's not just funny. He's really obviously a very likable person, despite his kind of crass behavior.
Yeah.
The fact he's staring down, I think he's staring down 40, isn't he?
Basically, yeah, he'll be 40 in about 2 months or so. Time of recording.
Oh man, what race is he? What race is he gonna have his birthday during a race? That'd be amazing.
Yeah.
He might be the only driver who's ever had their 40th birthday during a race.
Yeah, there are not very many 40-year-old drivers, at least nowadays. The last one I can think of was Schumacher, as well as Pedro de la Rosa. Not a reject, because he got second in a McLaren back in the day. But more beloved by myself as the HRT driver for a couple of years. Sorry, yeah. Give us why you think Raikkonen is the best driver of the year, Ben.
Well, let's see. Like, not everyone. A lot of people were very optimistic about Giovinazzi, and I was a little bit optimistic. I was like, oh, well, he's done pretty well before, and he's coming into Formula 1. And he scored a point, so, he's the same as Robert Kubica. I'll let that hang for a second.
Giovinazzi has been a bit disappointing. To sort of talk about Raikkonen by talking about Giovinazzi. Giovinazzi came along 2 years ago, back in the beginning of 2017, when I think Wehrlein had injured himself. And he had one good race, and then the second race he crashed in qualifying, and he crashed in the race. I think it was China. And everyone was like, oh, he's terrible. And I think the general consensus was he simply didn't have enough time to get used to the sport. He got dropped in the seat. We don't really have any way of properly gauging how good Giovinazzi was as a driver. And now he's been given a full season, and he's just not delivering. And it's maybe it's just because Raikkonen is actually a beast, but I really don't. I don't subscribe to that theory. I think Giovinazzi is being very disappointing. But anyway, what we were actually talking about Raikkonen here, and regardless of my own personal opinions, you can't argue against the fact that he has 31 points and Giovinazzi has 1.
No. Me personally, I think it is more due to Raikkonen, but that's just my personal opinion. Like, in the Infinite Probability Drive, I listed a bunch of reasons why I honestly think Raikkonen's going to be my nomination for Infinite Drive of the Year, most likely.
Maybe, because, yeah. I mean, I don't even disagree with you. That's the thing. Like, Raikkonen has driven superbly this year. I cannot argue against that.
I think, to summarize, he single-handedly elevated Alfa Romeo to 7th. Like, he has as many points as both Racing Point drivers combined, and it's hard to overstate the fact that, the commentary has mentioned his name. That is, considering they very rarely look at anyone who's not called Verstappen or Hamilton or Leclerc or Vettel. The fact he even gets his name mentioned on the TV, which, sad as it is quite a point to make.
No, I don't disagree with anything you're saying. I do agree. Do you have any honorable mentions? Anyone you wish you could put in your top 3 but don't have room for?
Oh yeah, it would be Danik Kvyat, because, I mean, he is now and forever unable to be a reject. He is...
What do you mean? He never was a reject. He got a podium years ago.
No, I'm just saying, even if for the next 10 years, he never scores another point, he will never be a reject again. Because no one can ever make him a reject.
I'll toast to that.
He's got.
He's had his redemption, and I'm very happy for him.
Yep.
My top 3 is a little bit different. I gave Raikkonen third because I have been watching the TVs and I have been tainted by the Sky coverage, and so I'm more giving my top 3 to the front-running drivers. Number 2, I'm giving to Max Verstappen because I think he's had his best year yet. He is just he is doing very, very well. I don't like his attitude, but his driving is very, very good. I feel like I tolerate Verstappen's attitude because he is not winning every race. I feel like a good driver.
He was in Hamilton's car, yeah.
A good driver combined with a terrible ego is usually just a disaster for me. I just can't connect to it. But Verstappen he's very good. He's horribly arrogant, but he's just in the right position where he can win races. And I have to respect the fact that he's doing absolutely excellently this year. In fact, he's almost in second in the championship. And in Red Bull, which if you look at another driver like Gasly, who in the wrong hands is barely even getting sixth in the championship, Verstappen is at the very least completely dominating his teammate. He's got 2 victories in his very first pole position now. He is easily the best of the rest when everyone was assuming it would be Ferrari. And everyone was assuming it would be Leclerc as well. And Verstappen is the one who's taking the fight to them, and he's doing a very good job of it. My number 1 is unfortunately Lewis Hamilton. I don't particularly like the guy personally. But you can't disagree with this is, of all his dominant seasons, this might be his most dominant. Speaking too soon, the season isn't over yet.
Yeah.
But to look at that record at the beginning of the season, it reminds me of Vettel in 2011, where he was in the top 2, I think, in the first 9 or 10 races of the season in a row, where it's just complete and total dominance. And Mercedes are one of the reasons for that. But my goodness, it's nowhere even near close.
Yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Bottas in Azerbaijan and Australia, he'd be even further ahead.
Yep.
Hamilton
has just destroyed everyone.
Yeah, I mean, like, you can try and diminish his wins by saying, oh, he's got a really good car and a really good team. But if he wasn't as good a driver as he is, he would not be as successful as he's been.
Yeah, I mean, when I was younger, I used to make that argument, though. When I was younger, I used to make the argument, oh, he's in the best car, therefore he's not very good. But, Gasly is absolute proof that being in a great car doesn't mean anything, really. Verstappen has 3 times as many points as Gasly does, and Gasly wasn't a badly rated driver when he got promoted to Red Bull. Let's put it like that.
Yeah. So on that note, should we go to our bottom
just quickly?
3
I'll say that my honourable mentions were both McLaren drivers. I think Sainz and Norris were both doing really, really well this year, and McLaren, who were just doing so badly the last years, seem to be finally having a comeback. Which is kind of sad that Alonso's gone, but maybe that might be one of the reasons. McLaren are doing really well this year, and Norris is in his first season and he's doing really well. He's almost unrejected by himself already with 2 6th places. So for that, I give them both props. So,
well, I mean, it's hard to debate. Like, McLaren's in 4th in the constructors right now.
Yeah.
By a wide margin.
So, bottom 3 drivers. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Let's start.
This might be a very short discussion. To paraphrase Mr. Brundle.
Yep. So number 3. It's very obvious that he's trying, but trying's not enough in Formula 1. Your teammate. I don't care how much preferential treatment Kimi Räikkönen's getting. Giovinazzi has scored 1 point. Okay? it's very obvious the Alfa Romeo car has potential that's not being exploited.
Can't disagree.
Pick up your game, Giovinazzi.
Do you have him as number 3? Because I have him as number 3 as well.
Yeah, I have his number 3. Yeah, honestly, I think he's capable of more as well as a driver. There's been little moments of like his overtaking in Germany. He overtook somebody, and I thought it didn't even get mentioned, but I watched him overtake, and I thought it was pretty good. I don't remember who it was.
Someone described as Giovinazzi as maybe the most forgettable driver of this year, and
no.
That has stuck with me because I'm tending to actually sway to that opinion myself.
See, I wouldn't say that. I'd say the most forgettable driver is the person who's trying his very best to be noticed. And my number 2 would be George Russell.
Really?
I think I don't like people who shove themselves on social media every single day and trying to get their face put out there. It's a little annoying to me. All I see is non-stop George Russell updates, non-stop George Russell posts. I'm honestly starting to think he's maybe, as crazy as it sounds, maybe he should spend a little more time driving the car and less time on Twitter.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but that to me that is a very controversial decision. I would say both Williams drivers have been pretty decent this year.
Yes, they've been pretty decent. I just really don't like his attitude. And I mean, it's fine.
That is your opinion. You are allowed to state it.
I mean, I say like the Williams car is obviously struggling, and both Williams drivers really are doing the best they can. I do believe that. I mean, getting a point in that Williams by Kubica was actually, as much luck as went into it, still a pretty good result.
Well, controversial decision. Apparently George Russell is second worst driver of the year, according to You-Gee-Eee-Day. Number 1 worst driver of the year, Ben.
Well, you give me your number 2. Let's go one by one.
My number 2 is a joint award to both Haas drivers for consistently crashing into each other and being utterly dreck. I mean, Magnussen a year or two ago was actually fighting for best of the rest. He was sort of fulfilling the role of like Perez for a couple of years. For example, I do pay attention to who finishes 7th or 8th in the championship. Who is best of the rest if you take away the top 3. And Perez, Hülkenberg are often fighting for that position. There's usually a consistent group of people. It's like when you're watching the absolute peak of tennis players. There's usually the same group of people who are always seeded between 5th and 8th in the world. There's always the same guys. And it's just like if these top 3 drivers weren't around, if these top 3 tennis players weren't around, these guys would be winning slams all the time. And Magnussen was that, and I was totally a Magnussen fan. And this year he has just been terrible. He and Grosjean have just consistently been slow. They've crashed into the walls. They've crashed into each other. They've complained about their team. Their team has complained about them.
Their team boss got on the radio to tell them to shut up.
Yeah, neither of them will be in the Haas team next year. There's no way.
No.
Okay, famous last words. You can record me on this, but like, neither Haas driver will be in the car next year.
That's a heck of a prediction. You could very well be right.
And
if the dust is settled, can I? I just wanted to get a reaction out of you by saying George Russell, to be honest. So can I give you my real answer?
Really? Okay.
Because he was my honorable mention, but I thought if I made him number 2, it'd really get you going.
You got me.
To be honest, I would have said one of the Haas drivers for my number 2. And that would have been Magnussen for his attitude. Honestly, that put him above Grosjean for me. Like yelling at your team more than once during this season. You don't hear, like Verstappen for all his stick, you don't hear him yelling at his team over the radio.
I mean, the other thing is that like it's all about perspective, and Magnussen was the lead Renault driver a couple of years back, and now look at him. He's not going to be in that seat next year, and who's going to want him? To be honest, that's the sad thing. Is it's like, where's he going to go? Who's going to pick up Kevin Magnussen, the former McLaren junior who scored a podium on his first ever race, and was then the Renault lead driver for about like 1 season before he switched teams. And yeah, it's been a real downward slide, and that's very sad to see. But he utterly deserves the ire of the public. Okay, so
do you wanna give your number one before I do? Because I give my first number one.
My number one worst driver of the year, my current reject of the year, is Pierre Gasly.
Fair enough.
And you're going to tell me that yours is not?
No, actually, amazingly.
Okay.
I think Pierre Gasly is really bad, and I honestly don't think it's worth talking about him. It's a bit like talking about sand. Why bother?
But I'm going to talk about him anyway. So Gasly came in his second season into the Red Bull team and has completely and utterly disappointed. He's been consistently slow. He's finished outside the points twice, though in France he got promoted. He's been completely and utterly destroyed by his teammate. He hasn't given any pace in the car. He got replaced over the summer, and in Belgium he'll be driving a Toro Rosso, so he's already been demoted after 12 races. And Daniel Kvyat in a Toro Rosso has scored more podiums this year than he has. Rejected the year so far, in my opinion.
I obviously agree. I think I posted a big rant about him as well on the forum. But again, I try not to give obvious answers. I think it's a bit of an obvious answer. It doesn't mean you're wrong in any way. You're totally right.
One of us has to give the obvious answer.
Yeah. I try to have like
worst driver of the year.
My alternative would be Sebastian Vettel. He's
really.
I honestly think he has given up.
Former race winner Sebastian Vettel.
Yes, but considering the car he's in is obviously capable, right? How many times in the first 10 races did he up and cost himself?
No, that is a good point. He has had many incidents this year. He's had he seems to be one of the more accident.
I'm going to send you a picture right now. One sec. I'm going to send you this picture. Can you put this up during this part of the video?
He has been one of the more accident-prone drivers at the front in recent years, and it's...
Yeah.
I was always skeptical of him when he was winning in those Red Bulls, because he was in a similar situation to what Hamilton is in now, and I didn't really rate him. And, you have to prove yourself in a car which isn't the best. That's how you really, in my opinion, that's really how you get respect. And Alonso did it. Alonso drove cars which really weren't great and put them in places they didn't belong, and he was very good at doing that. Vettel, since leaving he left Red Bull because he got beaten by his teammate and moved to Ferrari, and he has talked the talk but simply hasn't delivered. He hasn't won in over a year. Basically, I think his last win was actually Belgium last year, and he's been very disappointed this year, especially when people were considering this might be Ferrari's year, this might be Vettel's year. It's not going to happen.
I think it is probably worth mentioning. My favorite joke that's been told so far this year is, keep in mind that Kimi Räikkönen is the last Ferrari driver to win a race.
Yep.
That fact still stuns me.
Yep. He's the only driver to win under the mission win now era.
Yeah. Oh man.
So what do you think of Alex Albon, who's now going to be driving a Red Bull in Belgium?
I think Red Bull were really stuck with who to stick in that seat apart from Gasly, right? They had a couple of choices, right? Danny Kvyat, but that was obviously not a choice for reasons outside of racing. We'll leave it at that. They could have, in theory, tried to grab, you think anyone else is going to move over this break? We've got a week to go.
Well, that's the issue, isn't it? It's like Red Bull have put themselves into a problem with their best friend is their worst enemy, because they've given themselves a B team, but when they don't have any good drivers because they're all in different. The problem stems from the fact that Red Bull are so terrible to their drivers. So nowadays, nobody actually signs up for the Red Bull team and junior team and signs up for other junior teams, which means that Red Bull don't get good junior drivers, which means that when they get bad top drivers, they can't replace them with anyone because all the junior drivers are not very good. Gasly got promoted too early because Ricardo was basically felt like he was getting pushed out, and the team were revolving around Verstappen, which is probably true. Gasly gets thrown in. Gasly's terrible, and now Albon's going to be there. And I'm thinking, what if Albon is terrible? What if Albon is even worse?
If Albon, like, I think for the next, let's say, I think it'll take until at least Singapore before he really comes back into his own, right? Like, come back into his own, I mean, like, before he actually gets to the same level he should have been at if they'd just booted Gasly earlier. I think I posted about that on the forum. Like, if they'd given him more time, he'd probably be doing better a lot quicker, because he'd have had this whole break rather than just the last half of it to,
like,
adjust.
The argument, like every argument, in theory, it makes sense. In theory, if you put Albon in the seat, that means you've tested Gasly, Albon, and Kvyat in a Red Bull seat, and you can decide who to put in the second seat next year. In theory, that's fine, but you're racing in an F1 championship. You're going to have 9 races with a driver who's in his first season, who's now driving a Red Bull and might just be even worse than Gasly. And bear in mind, Gasly in the first 12 races scored 63 points, which is an average of how many points per race? 5?
Less than 5, I think.
About
that's right.
Say around 5 points per race.
5 points per race on average, where his teammate is on average in the top 3. Or top 4 at least.
Quite grim. And you're looking at putting a driver in who is completely untested. To me, the move is crazy. I'm really happy for Albon, but he might go the route of Max Verstappen Sr., Jos Verstappen, who was immediately thrown into the top team, and because he didn't do very well, didn't have any possibilities in a top team for the rest of his career. If Albon gets promoted and he's terrible, he will probably never ever get to a top team again. And that's a big shame, because Red Bull are really good at ruining drivers' careers, and it's very sad because I can unironically see Albon getting sent off to Formula E and very soon, if he doesn't impress. If he impresses, I'll step back and say good job. But I think it's a crazy move by Red Bull to put Albon in that car. When I think about it from a practical perspective, both for Albon and for the team's crazy that they would put Albon in the car and not Kvyat, who seems like such an obvious choice.
Yeah, they've backed themselves into a stupid corner, right? And there's no one to blame but Red Bull themselves. They can either keep Gasly, in which case the entire world will keep laughing at them for the rest of the season, and probably the next couple of seasons after, just for having kept it. Right? Even though, I will admit to the one Gasly fan left out there, that he has gotten steadily better over the course of half a season. That's not much of a compliment, but it is a compliment. He's gotten steadily better. He's closed the gap to the midfield. He's now regularly appearing at the top of the midfield in a Red Bull. So they'd held on to him, right? And we may as well just call this the Gasly section. If they'd held on to Gasly, he could, in theory, by the end of the season, be scoring 6th, 5th, reasonably, right? What do you think? Do you think he could make that?
I think he could have got a podium eventually, but it's too little, too late.
Oh,
and I'm gonna.
Jeez,
I think being an emotional man that I am, I don't think he deserves it. The only reason why Gasly would get a podium is because he's in a Red Bull, not due to any of the performances that he's actually been putting in. It was in the same way that Kovalainen got a win in a McLaren. He was in a McLaren. Gasly should have got a podium months ago.
He managed 4th in Britain, if I remember right. I think he was 4th.
Yes.
And he was relatively close to Leclerc when he ended. I'm not sure what the gap was, but he was close enough that you could at least say they were on the same page of the book.
It may have been due to the fact that one of the front runners appeared to have crashed majorly. In fact, 2 of the front runners may have crashed majorly, one of them being his teammate, who only finished one place behind him.
I mean, Verstappen was catching up on Gasly by the end of the race in the same car. And that was kind of I think that really was the moment where anybody who was defending Gasly gave up. It's like, Verstappen in a car that has crashed is nearly about to overtake his teammate. Given a couple more laps, he could have overtaken Gasly.
Probably, yes.
Maybe. But, I mean, it's not impossible that with a couple of crashes he could have got a podium, which is not very much, it's not saying much, but yeah, he could have got a podium if he'd been kept on.
Okay. How about your...
But on the other hand...
Sorry, go on.
On the other hand, Toro Rosso cars can appear on the podium, so it's not impossible he'll be on the podium this season, is it?
I know, we're being unfair with that argument, as Germany was such a crazy race. But it was a crazy race in which Gasly crashed. That's the problem.
Yes.
It was a crazy race in which Gasly crashed.
That was possibly his only chance to see the podium as well. And he crashed.
That's the exact race you're supposed to show off your talent. It's pouring with rain and everything is going haywire. You're supposed to be the driver who keeps the car on the track and keeps your focus and gets on the podium. You crashed.
Yeah.
If I'm not mistaken, you crashed into one of the Toro Rossos.
Yeah.
And that unfortunately probably was one of the many nails in his Red Bull coffin.
I don't want to see, it was probably the final nail in the coffin, really. Hungary was actually a pretty good result for him, but at that point I don't think it mattered.
You talk about Hungary being a good result when he finished behind a McLaren.
Yeah. For Gasly, it's a good result, my point being.
Reject of the year so far.
You know?
So,
yeah.
What are your predictions for the rest of the year, Ben? Sorry, unless you have anything else to say.
I was gonna say, if it came down to between Vettel and Gasly for Reject of the year, I know who's gonna win. I'm pretty sure I know that everyone's gonna vote for Gasly over Vettel.
Yes, I would say so. I would say that's deserved as well, but then again, that's just my opinion.
Yeah.
All right. Predictions for the rest of the year, Ben.
Predictions for the rest of the year. Let's see. Realistic predictions. I think. As sad as it is, I honestly don't think we're going to hear a positive thing said about Gasly for the rest of the year. I think he's only ever going to be mentioned as the Red Bull driver who got demoted.
Isn't that sad? But then again, he's following in the footsteps of Kvyat, who, when he got demoted to Toro Rosso, really didn't do very much. I agree. I think that when he goes back to Toro Rosso, I think Gasly will be largely getting 10ths and 9ths, maybe, and then will fade into obscurity. What about the front of the grid? Do you think we're going to see a Ferrari win by the end of the year?
No. I'm actually willing to say there will not be a Ferrari win by the end of the year at this point.
Okay.
As long as Max Verstappen exists, we will not see a Ferrari win by the end of the year.
Do you think Albon will get a podium?
Albon? Another race like Germany? Yeah. Realistically, no.
Okay. So
I don't think he has enough time to get used to a front runner car to score a podium.
Okay. Do you think
not on merit at least?
Red Bull will finish ahead of Ferrari in the constructors, or the other way around?
Yes, absolutely 100%. Ferrari are doomed.
Okay.
Unless a miracle happens, right? If Albon is even 10% better than Gasly, Verstappen will crush Ferrari almost single-handedly.
Okay.
All he needs, they would already be ahead if they had another 50 points or so, wouldn't they?
Yes, they would, probably.
Where is it?
Yeah, they need about 50 points to get ahead. 45 points.
Yeah. If they had another 50 points, which is not much to ask of a front-running Red Bull car, is it? ... If Albon really doesn't have to score very highly. If Ferrari don't get any better, and as we know, in the second half of the season, Ferrari cars don't get better, do they?
No, that is the sad truth, isn't it? Okay. More predictions. Do you think that Gasly will finish in front or behind of Albon in the standings by the end of the year? Do you think that Albon could overtake Gasly in the standings? I'm being serious.
I know, that's why it's so funny. He was driving in a Red Bull and he's going to get beaten by a Toro Rosso.
Alex Albon has scored more points in the last 2 races than Gasly did.
I know.
But technically, Albon has had a better 2 races than Gasly did.
I honestly do think I would be willing to put a small amount of money on that.
Would you put a can of Rich Energy on that?
I've only got a few. I mean, he'd save them for a certain reason.
That will be at the end of the podcast. We'll explain that. But I think everyone can probably guess already what that means.
I will put a sum of money arbitrarily decided by you on that.
1 yen.
That is a hefty sum. I think that's about 1/60th of a penny.
I don't know. So, keeping on track, the front of the grid. Do you think that Bottas?
To answer, I would say yes. I do think Albon will finish ahead of Gasly in the standings.
Oh wow!
I'm willing to say that. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong.
Okay.
Right? And you can all make fun of me forever for having said it. I honestly think Albon can do it.
He could do it. That's the scary thing, is that I'm not saying he will do it, but I'm saying he could do it, and that's terrifying. Okay.
It's like we stuck a rocket on the back of your car for 10 races, and your teammate didn't get one, and he still won. Okay, next question. Let's stop talking about it, because that's really sad.
So, front of the grid. Do you think Bottas will keep his seat in Mercedes for next year?
He's not made any moves to leave, and he seems to really enjoy getting to compete with Hamilton a lot more.
Well, this year has been better than last year. But what I'm asking you, do you think Mercedes will keep him, or do you think they'll get Ocon or a different driver?
I wouldn't want to replace Bottas with Ocon if I was Mr. Wolf. If I was him, I would hold on to Bottas for at least a year. What do you think?
I'm in 2 minds about it. It's really sad that Ocon's not on the grid right now, because Ocon is very, very good. I think it would be a crazy move for them to get Ocon, but also that it's possible, because Ocon is very good. It would be one hell of a gamble, but I think it's a gamble which might pay off. But then again, it might, that's the thing about all these decisions in all sports, is that it's all hindsight. They could get Ocon, it could be the absolute gamble of the decade, and Ocon is the best new thing, and then he wins a bunch of races immediately, and Bottas is shown to be terrible. That's hypothetically possible. But Bottas proved himself when he was younger, that he was very, very good. And he's won 2 races this year. He's even led the championship for 3 races this year.
Yeah, I mean, he was ahead of Hamilton for a substantial period of time.
Yeah. So, but has he been doing enough? That's the thing. That's the thing most people are asking. He has had a couple of dud races. In comparison, when he's driving the best car on the grid, he's finished a couple of 4ths when he should have finished 2nd. He crashed in Germany. True. He finished 8th in Hungary. He could have had a better season.
He could have. I mean, you can see the points difference between him and Hamilton already. It's already, 60 points last time I checked?
Something along those lines, yes. 62 points.
That's a lot of points to be missing out on. I mean, even if you can factor in 7 points for every win he gets versus 2nd place, 60 points is quite a substantial gap at this point for 2 people driving what we presume are the same car.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that I don't think Ocon is as good as Bottas. I just don't think he's much better. as a driver. I couldn't see Ocon coming in and being better than Bottas. I could see him being just as good.
I mean, I must say I agree with that. That is basically the same as me. I think Ocon is good, but I'm not sure what they get out of Ocon that they wouldn't get out of Bottas. But then again, Ocon is unproven. Bottas, what you're getting with Bottas,
they know what they're going to get.
He's going to get.
Like they know if they keep Bottas, they're going to win the championship. Basically.
Yeah.
Why would you give that up?
Yeah, I mean it was the same. Yeah. It was the same thing with Webber when Vettel was winning everything. It's like he was a dependable teammate. I was a huge Webber fan, but looking back on it, especially in the last couple of years of his career, he was getting thirds about every. Usually it was about third he was finishing, and he was getting consistent podiums. He wasn't fantastic, but he wasn't terrible. He was reliable, and when a team has a number one driver who's destroying everyone, then that's all they really need. So it'll be interesting to see what Mercedes do. I think they'll keep Bottas, and if they don't keep Bottas, I think they'll buy another driver, but I don't know who they could buy other than maybe Ricciardo. Which brings us on to my next prediction, or at least my question. Do you think Ricciardo will stay with Renault? And do you think he has a choice?
I don't think anybody, apart from maybe Napoleon marching into Russia, has ever regretted a decision as much as Ricciardo regrets his decision.
Do you really think so, though?
I'm pretty...
I know you're being hyperbolic, because I know you personally, but...
Yeah, I'm being a bit hyperbolic here, but I mean, I honestly don't think Ricciardo's very happy with how things have turned out. I mean, like, he's got 22 points, if I'm looking at this. Yeah, 22 points in that Renault. The car that was supposed to challenge the top three.
Yeah, that's it, really, isn't it? Renault must be competing for one of the worst teams this year, especially when you consider their potential and the amount of talk that was around them and how good they could be.
Do me a favor, play some fantasy music here for a second as we go back in time, right? Okay? The year is 2018. I'm going to tell you from the future, Jeremy.
Mm-hmm.
McLaren and Toro Rosso are going to be ahead of Renault in 2019. Do you believe me?
Toro Rosso? Oh my goodness, isn't that sad? No, I wouldn't believe you.
McLaren have double Renault's points in 2019. Okay, no, you wouldn't believe me. Neither would I. I wouldn't believe myself. Now, back to the future.
I predict Norris will unrejectify himself. He's got 2 6th places, and McLaren is consistently good. As long as they're at least at their own pace right now, I think Norris will no longer be a reject by the end of the year.
I mean, like he's doing about as well as I would have predicted a McLaren would do this year, and that's like it's not a good or a bad thing.
No.
He's performing
for someone in their first
average.
season, Norris is doing very well.
Yeah.
I think it's easy to forget how new these drivers are to the top series, and especially how young Norris is.
A lot of new drivers this year, isn't it?
Norris is about 19 or 20 years old. He's very, very young. And if he's performing at this level in this time of his career, then he has a bright future.
Yeah, I mean, like, if you'd put an experienced driver in that car and they'd scored 24 points, I'd say he'd done pretty well. And considering how new he is, I think he's done really well.
Okay, let's look further down. So I predict that both Haas drivers will be out at the end of the year. I don't know who will replace them. I think someone like Hülkenberg, if Renault want another driver, I think Hülkenberg might move to Haas. It seems like a very Hülkenberg thing. Perez, for example, might move to Haas. Haas will want a dependable midfielder driver, and Perez or Hülkenberg, or maybe even, for example, Kvyat would be very good for that kind of team. Where they want they just need someone to bring in the points.
Is there a reason why? For some reason, something's telling me there's a reason why. I could see Ricciardo possibly wanting that seat.
Haas need to prove themselves as a stable team, first of all. They need to get a decent title sponsor. They had a very fast season last year, but one season, doesn't make a career, as Heinz Harald Frentzen will show. So maybe that's a controversial remark.
If there were only 2 seats available next year, the Renault and the Haas, which one do you think Ricciardo would go for?
Renault. He has more money behind it.
I suppose, yeah.
Renault are in danger of going bankrupt tomorrow, whereas Haas's title sponsor they're in legal action with.
Although to be fair, we could say that like a year or two ago we were saying that about another Formula One team, and they're still here.
Oh, that's true.
Against all odds, they're actually doing really well this year.
Let's look further down this standings. So, who do you reckon? Bear in mind, we haven't seen Albon in the Red Bull yet. Who do you think will be Verstappen's teammate next year?
Next year? I mean, like, I guess we're presuming then that they're not just going to keep Albon on, right?
Well, I don't know. Albon is an option.
It just entirely depends. Like, if Albon performs reasonably well, like better than Gasly, they'll probably keep him and just try and train him up into a good second-hand driver.
Yeah.
A good number two. And if he doesn't do well, I honestly think that Mr. Marco is going to have to sit down in a room with Daniel Kvyat and just have a very long discussion. And they're going to have to get over their differences. Kvyat's their last chance.
Marco is the one who has the problem. I think.
Oh, yeah.
I think Red Bull's issue is its management. It's the same with a lot of these.
Absolutely.
It's the same with a lot of these teams. Most of these Formula One teams, especially at the front, are very cliquey. One or two people decide the fate of the team, and that's usually, from looking at most of the stuff, usually a bad thing. The issue is that, for example, Ferrari don't like taking on young drivers. Leclerc is the first time they've taken on a young driver in a bloody generation. And the thing is that Red Bull are very political. They didn't like Kvyat. For some reason, they didn't get on with Kvyat. They liked Verstappen. They kicked out Kvyat, and they promoted Verstappen. Because of that, because of their pride or whatever, they can't promote Kvyat. There's something there. I don't know what it is, but I'm saying this now that there's no way Kvyat is ever going to be driving a Red Bull. If he didn't drive a Red Bull in Belgium this year, then he's not driving a Red Bull ever again. Because I think that's mostly just due to the Red Bull management and their need to save face.
I would say there is a way out for Red Bull. What they do is at the end of the season, they take in a new driver from their junior team, right? And then, for whatever reason, they engineer some drama to kick that driver out before the season starts. And then they, quote-unquote, as a last-stop measure, bring Kvyat in. They pretend he was their last choice, when in reality, they were trying to get him in and wanted to save face.
Yeah, I mean...
I think you could drama him into that seat.
If you were to say who was of Gasly, Kvyat, and Albon, I would say Kvyat was the most dependable driver this year, so far.
Yeah.
And Kvyat is the one who drove well when it counted. Though Albon got a 6th place. Let's not discount Albon because Kvyat did so well. That could have been swapped around and Albon could have been 3rd with Kvyat 6th.
Yeah, I mean,
I think Kvyat is easily the most deserving driver of the Red Bull seat this year, other than Verstappen.
The problem with these young drivers is you can go and look at their previous performance in other series, but it doesn't tell you much about how they're going to perform in a Formula 1 car, because it's just such a massive jump.
No, yeah, we never know.
I mean, Albon has been pretty reliably scoring points in that Toro Rosso, but then again, so is Kvyat. I say pretty reliably. Not very. Like, every second race or so, there'll be some points on the table with his name next to it. Which is better than nothing.
So, folks, we have just been speaking today about the current goings-on in Formula 1. And it took us about an hour, or if not more. So what I'm thinking is, if you liked this, we're going to publish it anyway. And what we'll do is we'll do a separate podcast very soon with a few features and just our general opinions about things. So we had some ideas, some short debates where we could take things about current Formula 1 and take opposing arguments. We had interest in doing a feature on the Korean international circuit. And we could also look at modern day rejects and which ones we could get profiled and which ones we'd like to see profiled, for example. So basically, this is the end of part 1, and we'll be back soon. And for part 2, we'll have a bit more reject features, let's just say, to be as vague as possible.
Of course, we can take questions from the thread in the next part as well.
Yes, of course. All right. Thank you very much for listening. This was a very all over the place commentary. We just kind of riffed off of one another rather than actually. I feel like I could have planned this, but yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed the podcast, and we'll be back soon, whether you like it or not.
Planning is not the reject way, Jeremy.
That is true.
I mean, Rob Dylan. Damn it, I did it too.
I mean that's the ultimate excuse with this website, though, isn't it? If you do a crap job, you can just claim that it was in the spirit of rejecting.
Dub over your name with Rob Dylan. There you go.
So thanks very much, folks. We'll see you in part 2, whenever that is.
Thanks for listening, folks.
Bye.
Yep. Talk to them. Bye.